All right, I am here with Brenda Gunter, Mayor of San Angelo, running for re-election. As I have stated with the other candidates as well, I'm asking all the candidates the same questions, but for those of y'all that are currently serving, I've had to tweak them just a bit. And so I just want to be upfront with you on that. So the very first question I asked of your competitors is who is, and then whatever their name is. So let me adapt that just a bit. And so outside of serving on city council, tell me about yourself.
Well, I'm Brenda Gunter. I was born and raised in western Kansas, which was a rural farming and ranching community. And I left after I graduated from high school, went to Kansas State University, graduated, moved to Dallas, Texas, and from Dallas, Texas, I moved to New York City. And both in Dallas and in New York, I had executive positions with retail companies and designer clothing companies. I met my husband in New York. He was born and raised in San Angelo. We married and I moved to San Angelo. And since arriving in San Angelo, I've worked hard to be very involved in the community, to learn about the community, to help the community grow and develop and to improve and to constantly add more quality of life issues to this city.
So what motivated you to run for this office again?
Let me just say this, the bureaucracy that exists not only in the city but the state and the federal government, it slows processes down. And so what you want to do is have the time to make sure that you can execute the things that you believe are good long-term projects for the city. So in a 4 short year period, you can't get everything in a vision and a strategy executed. You can get the vision out there, you can get the strategies out there, but you can't get the projects completed. And so if you believe, and I believe strongly, that the things that we've worked on are very important to this community, you want to make sure you're there to follow through on all those issues.
All right. I asked your fellow candidates have they been following city council for a while and what changes did they feel that needed to be made. So let me adjust that question for you. Having served on city council as the mayor for the last 4 years, what changes do you feel need to be made?
As a council, I think that this council has done a great job, and I say that because each of the council members have either been self-employed in a business capacity, have created their own businesses, and or work for corporations. So you have a council that is well informed. They've worked with financials, they know P&L statements, they know businesses, they have been involved at higher levels of interaction with people. So there's a group of people that I think represent every single district well.
All right. So changing the questions just a bit, I'm going to ask you a perspective on some different bullet points. First one being our infrastructure, and add to that the water lines collapsing.
Infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. It has been a conversation from the day I became mayor that we talk about, that we focus on, and that we try to improve on the infrastructure. But as all people know in all cities across the entire United States as well as countries, infrastructure is a problem. Infrastructure is a problem everywhere. Cities, municipalities, federal government, state governments have not had the money that they need to do all of the infrastructure that today needs repaired. It's a financial issue. You got to have money to do it. And finding the money as well as financing all the other things that you need to finance is a struggle. So you have to start with priorities and try to tackle the biggest problems that exist and hope that that starts a timeline to get all the other projects done. But infrastructure is a nationwide issue.
All right. Our city streets.
They're a disaster, and they got worse this past month. We've gone through significant droughts and then significant flooding rainfalls and then significant freezing time period. We have gone through every single level of weather conditions that impact the conditions of our street, from the driest to the wettest to the coldest to the hottest. Every one of those conditions deteriorate the streets. And so it is, and it will always be an ongoing subject. There'll never be a day where infrastructure is not a topic of conversation, and where infrastructure doesn't need more funding and more effort and more energy and more work being done on it.
Our rising crime and murder rate.
Well, in talking to Chief Carter, he will say crime's down 8%, that murders are up in the first 3 months of this year, but overall crime is down. So if you look at it, you have to sort of dissect that crime rate and understand what is happening and where are the crimes the worst, where they're improving, and where there still needs to be constant emphasis. Obviously, the media loves the big crime spells for reporting. And so our news is constantly with the worst stories you can imagine, whether it's the fatalities, whether it's the murders, whether it's the big drug cartel issues. But overall, Frank has told me that crime is down 8%.
All right. Statewide pandemic mandates and local orders from the health department.
No one would want to be mayor during COVID-19. No one. It was the worst year of my life, I think, that I will ever have to live through. As Drew Darby said, Brenda, I don't think there's ever been a mayor who's ever had to live through all the things that you've had to live through over the past 12 months. The point that I think needs to be made is we still need the ability to have more control at a local level. The hardest part of the COVID-19 situation was that we the city, and I as part of a 7-city West Texas mayor group, all turned in plans to the governor for us to have more local control and execute our own plans. We were not acknowledged. So what you had was executive orders from the governor that treated all cities, all sizes, and all parts of the state as one and the same. We had no uniqueness, no ability to make our own rules and regulations. And if you didn't follow the governor's executive orders, you heard from somebody at the highest level of the governor's office telling us that you needed to behave and get in line. So the mayor did not make any of those decisions. The mayor was in a position, the city was in a position to execute the governor's orders. And I hate the fact that many people think I have the authority to shut the city down. I do not, and did not have, and would not have executed all of the executive orders as they were presented to us. And I say that for the following reasons. There were some of those items in those executive orders that didn't make common sense. There was just no common sense. And yet I also understand that we were dealing with something that had never happened before at the level that the COVID situation created. So I'm not pointing fingers at Governor Abbott. He had tough decisions to make. He was trying to make the best decisions he had with the information that he had at the point in time to protect the health and safety of all citizens. But what I would say is the following: I think more input from smaller cities would have been beneficial.
All right. Dog parks and bike trails.
Quality of life is hugely important. Whether it's dog parks or biking trails or walking trails, anything that we can do to improve the quality of life is important. And it's even better when we have citizens who choose to invest their own money, time, and energy into these projects, like the dog park, of which a young Girl Scout raised the money to fund most of that. It's like the next level sports complex that was put in by Sean Box. You know, that's city-owned land. He spent his money to create that project, and it has been wonderfully successful. It is great when you have local people who have entrepreneurial skills, who have such an interest in this city that they'll invest their own money. The same thing on the trampoline park, privately owned. They invested their own money to create something that was unique in this city and that has been very successful when it's been open. So I look for more citizen input. I look for creativity from our citizens in terms of projects that they think should be done, and help finance part of those. We need the community support. We cannot finance all the projects and still deal with infrastructure.
Downtown beautification.
One of the greatest things about downtown areas is the following. They are significant in our ability to recruit doctors, nurses, health practitioners, professors, students. If we didn't have a downtown that was in a revitalization time period, we'd have a very difficult life here in San Angelo because we would not be able to recruit the right people to this city. You can't have nothing and expect people to come. Quality of life is hugely important. If you're going to be a student at ASU, don't you want the same nightlife that the students in the University of Texas have? All of our West Texas city, Midland, Odessa, Abilene, Lubbock, all come to San Angelo and look at us in terms of what we've done with downtown revitalization to try to determine how they can create the same kind of excitement in their downtown areas. They're huge energizers. Their huge downtown revitalization is hugely important to the growth of this city and the quality of life of this city, and for our businesses to be recruited. They check us out. They don't want just a city that has a lot of big box stores. They want a city that has some excitement. They want a city that has an entertainment district. They want a city that you can walk around from place to place and shop and hear great live music and see outdoor art projects. This makes our city more exciting. This makes us a unique, different city from all the other West Texas cities.
Last bullet point, loss of sales tax and hotel occupancy tax due to pandemic shutdowns.
The amazing thing during the pandemic shutdowns was actually our sales tax revenue did not drop as much as we thought it would, primarily for the following reasons. The government issued checks. People went out and spent the money in improving their homes. And the other thing, I hate to say it, but hailstorms also produce great sales tax revenue because it's Amazon proof. You can't buy new roof on Amazon. You can't buy new windows on Amazon. You can't buy new siding. All of those things had a great impact. In fact, I believe it was July of this year, we've had the largest percent increase in sales tax we've had in 2 years, 15%. All because, unfortunately, we had a hailstorm and we had stimulus checks. People really reinvested in their homes. They had time in their homes because because of COVID, they were home. They cleaned out their garages. They did a lot of home improvements. You saw people outside working on their houses, painting their houses, and that was all before even the hailstorm. Hotel tax, we were down about, our hotel tax occupancy is averaged about 55%, and that's up from about 65% the previous year. So it hurts, but a lot of those funds obviously are going to be missed. That was one area where you can't, stimulus checks don't help, and because of COVID, travel was limited. People weren't coming, conventions were shut down, couldn't come. So occupancy tax definitely will have an impact on our ability to reinvest in our city assets for the improvements that they need, because we do use some of that money to keep the facilities updated. So we'll struggle through that.
All right, we'll change topics. Would you be interested in seeing San Angelo become a sanctuary city for unborn children?
I would hope that the focus on unborn children, abortion, would become an issue that is resolved on a national level and a state level, and that a city would not have to deal with it as a sanctuary city. Obviously, abortion is a big topic of conversation, and it has been since the very day Roe versus Wade was passed. That was how many decades ago, and we're still arguing the same question. So I would say the following. I do not support abortion. I certainly don't support late-term abortions. I believe life is valuable and important, but I also say the following. We need to do a much better job on educating people. It's about education. Birth control shouldn't just be about abortion. Abortion isn't birth control. And it means for not only girls, but boys. Boys need to understand what happens in their lives if they get a girl pregnant. It seems to fall on the women's shoulders always. We've got to make sure people understand it's a two-person problem, two-family problem. It impacts lives for a very long time. And we've got to do a lot more, and we need to focus a lot more on education. What all are the alternatives? We need to make sure that families stay whole. We have too many single mothers who aren't supported by their parents, father, or their fathers aren't involved in the family life. We have way too many single families. We have way too many young girls who are raising kids on their own. I know many young boys who are raising their children on their own. We've got to put value, family values, back into our life. We've got to use religion to help get the message out there. Life is important. I'm pro-life. I'm pro-family. I'm pro-religion. But it's a big circle. It's not a single issue. And we've got to better understand what that big circle encompasses.
All right. Following along that same line, would you be interested in seeing San Angelo become a sanctuary city for illegal aliens?
I believe in law and order. Illegal immigration is illegal immigration, and we need to put the value of immigration back on the citizens here. We are the citizens of the United States of America. We spend way too much money on finding ways to control immigration, letting people into this country illegally, and then taking care of the illegals. We must focus on the United States of America's citizens, and those that are illegal are illegal. We are a law and order country. Follow the laws. Follow what the laws say we're supposed to do, and it's not illegal immigration. I don't care if they're migrant children or not. They're not legal here. And we use too many resources to try to control it and manage it and take care of the problem when we let them in. We have ways to bring in workforce. It's called HB2 visas. It's called HB1 visas. There are wonderful ways to bring qualified people into this city to support the labor market that we need. And we do need to supplement the labor market. Out here in West Texas, we have people who put up fences who can't find enough people to put up the fences. We have farmers who need support. We have agriculture that needs a lot of support. And they can't get the HB2 visas that they need because there's a controlled amount of visas that are approved every year. Why not increase the number of HB2 or HB1 visas to supplement our labor force instead of allowing illegal immigrants in? We have legal ways to control immigration.
One more along that same line. Would you be interested in seeing San Angelo become a sanctuary city for the Second Amendment?
I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment. I have a concealed weapon license. I continue to renew it every year. I believe many more citizens are doing the same thing. Our Constitution has proven to be a great instrument for a lot of years. And when we start letting politics, left or right, change the Constitution and start changing our rights, we've got a problem. That Second Amendment isn't to hold empty buckets of water. There's a reason for it. And we need to protect the rights of our citizens to protect themselves. Gun control is something that we as a government need to look at and say, it's not about the guns, it's about the people who own the guns. It's about the mentally unstable people that bring problems. It's not the gun itself, it's the people. It's about people. We've got to understand mental health. We've got to understand that there are domestic terrorisms. It's the people. We try to attack the gun issue instead of the people issue. It's the criminals that we need to worry about. It's the people who need mental health. We've got to make sure people understand that if you've got a problem, you have a relative, you have a child who you know could be dangerous, acknowledge it, seek help.
Okay, change topics again. What do you consider the main priorities that need to be addressed by the City Council?
infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. But I also say the following: in order to pay for infrastructure, you have to have economic development to help increase the property tax base, not the rate. We want to maintain the rate or decrease the rate, but we've got to grow the base. And you've got to have a growing economy in order to do that, whether it's sales tax or whether it's property dollars. And citizens keep complaining about needing, that we don't know that the streets need repaired. We know the streets need repaired. Many citizens don't want us to borrow money. We have to live within our budget. It is required that we live within our budgets. We take in about $38.6 million a year in property tax. $38.6 million goes to fund the police and the fire departments. 100% of your property tax dollars go to fund the fire and the police. The only thing left over is your sales tax dollars. So every time you order on Amazon, every time you spend dollars on Amazon, every time you travel to Dallas, Austin, San Antonio and spend money, your sales tax dollars go there. You want us to reinvest back in this city on infrastructure? We need your commitment to spend your money locally. I've had somebody write me a letter and say that, well, I'm spending all my money in Abilene now because I'm so tired of the high property tax rate in San Angelo. Abilene's is higher than ours is. They're at 0.78. We're at 0.776. So I say, make sure you understand what your sales tax dollars do in this city and why we need them. We need them to pay for the infrastructure because the revenue bonds, meaning our revenue, has to go pay for the bonds where we borrow money to do the infrastructure. Revenue bonds means revenue. We got to have it. And you can't keep borrowing it, and you can only borrow up to a certain level. Because if you want to maintain a grade A, AAA rating, so you get low interest rates, you've got to keep your revenue in line with the bonding and requirement for your revenue to pay for that. It's all about money.
Do you believe, this kind of flows with what you're saying there, do you believe there's a way to trim back on the city budget and live within a modest budget without increasing taxes?
One of my strategies since I became mayor has been to plan very, very, very fiscally conservative. So over the past 3 years, we have overachieved the budget. And we've done it because the sales tax revenue exceeded the plan. So I planned our sales tax revenue very conservatively. And every dollar that has been increased over the plan, we've put back into either infrastructure or other unfunded projects that were necessary, like backup battery power for our lights. So when you lose electricity, like we did 2 weeks ago or a week ago, if your battery packs run down, none of your street lights work. There are things that we have to fund that people are not even aware of exist in terms of projects. But the way I have managed it, the way I've had city council support, is we plan a very tight budget. And excess revenue over that budget every year goes back into infrastructure. Last year, 2 years ago, $1.2 million of it went back to fix potholes.
And
we're planning it pretty tight.
yeah. Do you support freedom of speech, religion, gun rights, and our Constitution as it was written?
I support our Constitution as it was written. I believe any attempt to change it becomes way too partisan, and I don't think that we should be changing our Constitution every 4 years when a different political party is in office. It would be a roving Constitution which would have no value. Our Constitution has maintained value for all of those things because we know what it says. We don't have to guess what it's going to say 2 years from today. We have to have something that's solid in place that we all can support and believe in.
All right. Leadership. Do you prefer the type of leadership Trump gave us or the type of leadership Biden is giving us now?
I would say the following. If you take a look at many of the things that Trump did, he accomplished a lot in his 4 years. We would all say that the chaos that he created was unacceptable. There was too much, yes, we're going to do this, no, we're going to, too many changing of the minds from one day to the next, which is very confusing. But if you take a look at what Trump did in terms of economic development and believing in America, he did a great job. He believed in we as citizens, we as Americans, deserve to be treated as the most important part of the United States of America. We should be important. It is our tax dollars that make this country great. And quite honestly, it's our tax dollars that we're sending to other countries to improve them. So if we as citizens aren't considered a really important part of every president's decision making, when you need our dollars, we got a problem. And I truly believe the citizens of the United States of America should be taken into consideration every time a decision is made.
How can San Angelo protect itself from the influx of illegals that are flowing over our borders today?
We are going to have to constantly work on making sure our representatives are fully aware of the issues and the problems. You know, we as a community, we as a state worked really hard to control COVID-19. We were shut down. I mean, to be shut down is, you know, when I think back on that, I mean, it's like, it's unacceptable that we had to pay that kind of a price as a citizen, as a business owner, as a state, and then we're allowing people to just flood our borders and come into our cities who've not been tested, who we don't know what they're bringing across the border. We don't know who and who isn't a terrorist, a plant. We've worked too hard to control COVID. Why would we just let people flood the border and allow them to come into our community without being tested?
Final thoughts and comments.
I want to thank the citizens for the continual support and the wonderful letters that I have received over the past few weeks thanking me for my leadership during a very tough, difficult year. No one would want to be mayor during this past year. No one. And believe me, it was a tough year. It was hard to answer those phone calls and the emails and the hate mail and all the anger and all of the upset people. Really tough year. But I say the following, that I believe strongly that we as a community did better, and I know statistically, if you look at all the surrounding cities and the state as a whole, we ended up doing much better in controlling COVID than the rest of our cities have done. And so I thank the citizens for their commitment to helping, even when they didn't necessarily always believe and support the decisions, because you got to know, neither did we always believe in them. But we did believe the health and safety of the citizens was the most important thing that we needed to manage. And so we chose to follow and do the right thing for all of our citizens.
If someone would like to get in touch with you, do you have Facebook, a website? How can they reach out to you?
I would ask that they do two things. Send me an email at brenda.gunter@cosatx.us, or my city phone is 325-450-1508, and you may text any information or questions to me. I'd much rather you call me and email me so that I can reach back out to you and we can have a one-on-one conversation.
Very good. Wish you all the best in your campaign.
Thank you.